I don't want the listing after 90 days, honestly. So if I'm an agent coming in, yeah, I'll take 90 days. I'd take in 30 days, right? You just need a shot to take a chance at bat. That's it. That's all you're trying to do. That's the security. Take that shot. If it pans out, it pans out. But that's not the only shot you're taking, right? You're gonna go stack that shot with another shot, or swing, right? Another swing, another swing. They're gonna hit. You're gonna make money, right? But you have to get out of that mindset of thinking that this piece of paper gives you security. It's no security. So to clean that up again, further clean it up, what I'm saying is the first strategy, if they're telling you no, they don't want to sign such and such, then get an open agreement signed. Because honestly, that's more of a real pocket listing.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Beyond the Sale podcast. And this week, I'm super excited to have Drew Oquendo with us. Drew is a specialist in real estate investing and creative financing. And I think that I want to have Drew on here just because I think it's helpful and useful for everybody to understand and the creative financing, real estate investing side of real estate. So welcome, Drew. Thanks for joining us. And I'm super excited to have you.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Super cool to be here. So
yeah,
let me know whatever question you got, man. I'll give you full disclosure, everything, full transparency.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think that's so. We met through Sub 2 Mastermind Real Estate Group, and I've learned so much from you just in talking about that sort of thing. The other side, I call it almost like the other side, the dark side of real estate, right?
Dark side.
The dark side.
Yeah.
But like through that, like I've realized it was like a lot of things that some of the investors are doing. I just don't understand why real estate agents don't understand why like that. And I think it'd be so helpful for them to help their clients. Also just to understand, I actually almost think that is what this is. It's more of what real estate actually is.
Yeah.
To understand that side. So I want to start with just talking a little bit about you, what you do before you got, I think you have your real estate license, and what you did before investing in real estate, and just a little bit on your background.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to add, I did learn a lot from you as well with systems and things like that. So it was a fair exchange, and we built a good friendship off of that. So I appreciate that. But to answer the question, so to go back, let's see, we're talking 2013, like fourth quarter, the last quarter of the year is when, I got bit by the real estate bug, right? And it was really, I guess, not so much real estate, I guess. Maybe it was entrepreneurial bug. Just wanted to be rich, right? And still working on that. But I was in the Marine Corps, right? So, I was trying to decide what I wanted to do. And I kind of figured, at that time, I just happened to see there was a bunch of options on the table, but I happened to see a podcast. Well, not a podcast. I don't think we had podcasts in 2013, but it was a YouTube video. It was an interview, right? Robert Kiyosaki was on there, and he was talking about, and this is funny because this is how like a lot of us got into real estate, but he was talking about the obvious, what he's known for, rich dad, poor dad. And it just completely, resonated. And just right from there, just started looking at more, YouTube videos, and got into wholesaling. Some guy out in Colorado made it look so easy, we've all seen that. So that's kind of how I got into it. I just made the decision, and that's the type of person I am, make a decision and just roll with it, and like head first, dive right in. And, I used that last quarter. It was probably like, it's November, December, to study up, learn flipping. Actually, Jerry Norton was a big guru back then. He still is, and not just a guru. He's an operator, still doing deals and stuff. But I learned how to flip from him, from his program. And the reason I was talking about wholesaling, but the reason I learned how to flip is because his advice was to, know what your buyer, what your customer is like looking for, right? And predominantly, we're selling or wholesale. When you're wholesaling, it's going to a fix and flipper, right? Not always, but predominantly it's the fix and flipper you're looking for, and the landlord too. But that's easier numbers to kind of work through. So I learned how to fix and flip, but didn't do well as a wholesaler. And that was largely due to ego, I'll say, because, in my mind, I was coming up with this story how, people are not going to buy from me because, they're just going to wait for it to, for me to fall out of contract and take the deal. So I was like, screw it. I'm just going to flip it myself because I believed in the numbers that much because his program was pretty good and I had a really good understanding of it. So that launched me into my first JV opportunity. Did a JV deal, did that deal, made 20K on that deal. We had a 60-40 split, 20K to me, and he got the lower half. So from there on, I was fix and flipper. Right. So I actually got into fixing and flipping right out of the Marine Corps. And I used that last year. 2014 is when I got out in December. So I used that last year to kind of use it as a test run and to see if I can actually make it as a entrepreneur or an investor. And I did really well as a fix and flipper. I was married at the time. My wife wanted to come down to Orlando, which is where I live now. And we had a son, so I think he was 2 at the time. So I'm thinking, hell yeah, we'll go anywhere because I'm killing it right now. So I wasn't completely like full of it, like of myself. I understood that I was going to a different market. So the strategy was to get my license. I actually got my license ahead of time when in the military, they let you can do it all online and stuff, go to a testing center on the base out there locally. And I secured everything before I went down. As soon as I got down, it was 2015. I got down to Orlando. 2015, started as an agent, and it was great. It was cool. It was fun, right? But I didn't make any money for the whole, about a year and a half. Had so many limiting beliefs, and I saw the potential was there. But man, and I when I came in, I went straight to listings because, I read the book. Millionaire Real Estate Agent by Gary Keller.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, this is
that
holy
book.
grail right here. Yeah. So, I mean, I can't lose with this. And that made me want to go to, Keller Williams because it was like that's the home for all the heavy hitters. If they're going to follow, if he made this book, that's where I need to be. So went there, wasn't as easy as, we all think it is. It's a simple concept, right? It's just not easy to do. And for me, it was the limiting beliefs. So I had to identify the limiting beliefs, be real with myself, and start telling myself a better story, right? And the biggest limiting belief I had was every time, like I said, I was a listing agent. Always, I started direct to seller, so it was calling expireds and calling FSBOs, door knocking, all that stuff, because that was the same stuff I was doing as a fix and flipper. I was running that direct to seller model. Although I was putting bandit signs up there, it worked in that market. It was a smaller market. But so I had no problem doing that and talking to sellers. So I would get listings. So the story I was telling myself was, man, I have no problem getting listings. I get it signed, but something always happens to kill the deal. Whether it's me coming back to the office, and then celebrating, high-fiving, ringing the bell and everything. I got a listing signed. And they call me saying, hey, hold off on the listing. We're going to go a different route, or, pause the listing. We're going to wait for a little bit. It would kill that deal, or getting it listed and then getting it under contract and not selling at all. Like my first listing I ever got was like within a week or two of being a bona fide agent with a brokerage, and it didn't sell to the end of the year. It was the craziest thing, right? And all that was from in here, At least that's what I believe.
Totally.
Identified that, I changed it.
And you've helped me out with that too. It's so funny, like when we get into something with like it's new and the limiting belief, because we think we don't know what's ahead of us, and so like we think like, we're so afraid of what could happen.
Yeah,
and what's usually in our brain is way worse than what's actually the reality of.
Always. Yeah. I think that's a part of that. There's like a technical, scientific reason, like that fight or flight. If you assume the worst, you can prepare for it and, not be, devastated or taken over if it happens, but it's the wrong mindset to have. And like to add on what you were saying, one of the other things is kind of a caveat to that. One of the other things that people that I notice suffer with is, and even me, is when you try something new. You could be successful in one area. Let's take real estate, like being an investor, right? Or going after a certain niche or a price point. All of a sudden, you're in this new world, slightly new world, looks a little different, but it's the same thing. All the same principles apply. Pre-qualifying them, making sure you're not wasting time, and doing all the same steps, right? Because you're still dealing with people at the end of the day, right? So it doesn't matter if it's, $1 million price points, or really, really low price points. It's still the same mindset. So nothing really changed. And I see that shake a lot of people up. All of a sudden, they don't know anything, like how to comp.
Yeah. Also, what you're saying is, what I thought comes up for me is the JV, like, and so the joint venture,
right? Yeah,
is like so, you even what you, it is all the same thing, but it also is, the reason why you joint venture on your first deal, which is actually something that is new. What to me, I heard the term before, but really like how to do it until I got into the real estate investing, but how to like almost find a strategic partner, like someone that's doing it already, and joint venture with them, split the profits.
Yeah.
And that's a limited belief that I think I was talking to you about, splitting the profits and taking a small piece of a big pie instead of like a big piece of a small pie.
Yeah, exactly.
And then splitting the profits and then learning how to do it, either learning how to do it or just like giving it to somebody else and focusing on what you're good at.
Yeah, 100%. Like that's a big struggle with people. For lack of a better term, I mean, all it is really it's a form of greed. It's not to say it in a bad way, right? I always remember like my first lesson with greed. I think I'm a stand-up guy. I thought I was back then, and I remember sitting with the guy that I'm still friends with him. He was a former FBI agent. He's still operating out there in North Carolina, killing it. But he kind of mentored me through that process. And when we were talking, right, and I hear this all the time now, like, I was just like, man, if you lend me the money on this deal, I don't care if I make anything on the deal. I just want to learn the process, right? I hear that all the time. I just want to learn the process. And, we're talking about projections and everything, and it's looking good. And honestly, I didn't really care about the numbers. So I just wanted to go through the process, not lose any money, right? And what happened was I got the check and it was $20,000, right? And I'm like, we're sitting on the steps and we're just talking. It's like, man, how does it feel? I was like, honestly, I feel like it should be more. I was like, that's it. And he laughed at me. He was like, man, that's greed. And I was like, damn, because we don't think of greed like that, right? It was just innocent, I wasn't complaining. I was complaining, but I wasn't like really like complaining, just for lack of a better term. It's a complaint, but I was just like, man, I feel like it should have been more, right? Every time I'm in a deal, I kind of washed that out, so I don't have that thought anymore. But if it does creep up, and this will probably come into a topic later, that we'll probably get into, but if it does creep up, I'm like, I remember that moment, and then I kind of check myself, and I'm good, right?
It's awesome. It's something that I'm always learning too, and I think it's, we sometimes think about this, the transaction. I was having a conversation with somebody else, and they were talking, and they're further. We've been in real estate for actually the same amount of time, but he's built a large organization, and he's like valuing the relationship and the future relationship.
Yeah.
And like instead of just the transaction, and he's like, if you can have like that thought process of valuing the relationship, and even if you don't make money on it, or even if you're just learning, or even if you can bring something to somebody else,
100%,
and without expecting anything, and so I was thinking about that, and I was like, okay, cool, that makes sense. He's like, but also, what happens, John, is that you miss out on the deals that they bring to you.
Yeah.
The future deals. Like you're not talking about this deal. You're trying to take everything you can, but what about the you start giving them deals, but what about the future deals that he can possibly bring to you?
Yeah.
And that was just like,
100%.
Blew my mind.
And that to touch on that too, I read a book. This will be funny, but a book by 50 Cent, right? I know you don't listen to rap or anything like that. No, I'm just kidding. but 50 Cent, right? He wrote a book.
I listen to 50 Cent
Yeah, everybody
in the club.
in the
Come on.
So he wrote a book. I think it was um hustle hard or something like that. Hustle hard or something like that, right? But it was the most recent one, and man, I like that book had a lot of gems in it, right? Um, like a lot of fatherly advice, right? The advice I never had as a kid, and one of those things that furthers what you just said was don't overlook the initial paycheck, or don't overlook the opportunity for the initial paycheck. So you get people so many times, how much money I paid, how much money I paid, right? Or well, they don't want to touch it because they're worth this much more or whatever, whatever, But the opportunity is like priceless. Like there's so much more in the opportunity in that relationship, you know. And every good relationship I have is built off of that principle, you know.
Yeah. It's a trust issue, right? It's like trusting that it's going to work out. Like this, I put my trust in that it's going to work out. Yeah, and it's kind of something that you have to learn. Some people are probably better at it, or through their upbringing, or
Yeah,
or
maybe.
if they're not programmed that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So so you started flipping houses. You did, which probably is maybe a good thing that you didn't do wholesaling. Maybe it was a good thing. I know you probably do some
I got
wholesaling
locked
now.
in. Yeah.
Okay.
But I did
And then
flipping and I did the creative stuff too back then. With Ron LeGrand. That was first one of the first guys into the
Okay.
creative world. And then there was a local group that was like killing the creative stuff off of another guru named Lou Brown, both down here in Florida. I believe Lou Brown's here in Florida. But so I never directly studied under Lou Brown, but through them indirectly, I got a lot of what he was offering because they were running his program, and they were killing it. Seller finance deals, they were selling wraps, all that stuff, everything you think of. So I did some lease options, sandwich lease options, some seller finance deals and things like that back then. I just dabbled in like everything. So I had a real good, introduction to investing in all forms, out there in that nice little controlled market. This was over in Camp Lejeune where I was stationed at, and huge base, kind of supports the whole, community there. And everybody has money, everybody, the market's pretty solid there, always been. But coming down here, I got off track because price points were bigger, and I kind of got intimidated by it. And that goes into what I was telling you before about things look a little different, and all of a sudden you just freeze up and you don't know what to do, So just did the agent shuffle, for that time.
So okay, so then I love that. I love that you're just like, hey, this honest about it all, because I think
Of
that's
course.
like so helpful for everybody, man. And I'm the same way. I mean, so I get. I mean, if you're just talking about getting into investing, it's like I'm still learning. I'm still intimidated by it.
Yeah.
I'm still afraid that I'm going to get locked up in jail. Sometimes if I do something, because we're talking about programming. We're programming as real estate agents to think that way.
Yeah.
And it's kind of probably better that you went from flipping, investing into real estate, because so you're like, hey, when you're taking that test, you're like, this is actually not that. It doesn't really work that way.
Yeah.
But so then you went into listing properties, and how did you transition from listing properties or for real estate? I remember we had a conversation. You were teaching. You kind of had an arm of like working on the team doing. You were like, you had an affinity to do investing, and you were trying to teach people how to do that and call people and be on the phone. But how did you transition away from that and decide, hey, look, like I don't want to do real estate, residential real estate. I want to actually move more into wealth building and building a business for real estate investing.
Yeah, 100%. So, that is around the time when we first met. Because we met through Sub 2, right? And that was a good thing. I don't want to fail to mention, Pace Morby and everything he's, added, all the value he's added and still continues to add. So even though I was doing creative stuff before, he put a whole new spin on it. He gave me a 360-degree understanding of it and how to pitch it and all that stuff, right? Way better to where, you can just spit it off in layman's terms so people can understand, right? And agree to it and say yes. So I give him all the credit for that. But, and that's how we met, and that's how I'm meeting everybody else now, right? But during that time, I was using I was in the program as well, and I was using a lot of stuff I was learning from there and the stuff I learned from the past, right? I've done a lot of different training, even with Mike Ferry when I was doing the listing agent stuff. I did that for 2 years, right? All helpful stuff. And so I used all of that to, to talk about what what you mentioned, me being on that team. It was a really big team, right? And I don't want to get in trouble for mentioning the name, but really big, successful team. And I got an opportunity to create and run their listing department. And then also, aside from that, alongside of that, start an acquisition company. So that kind of launched me back into the game, like full on, However, I was bogged down, for a lack of a better term, because I appreciate the opportunity. I love every minute of it. So I don't want to, associate it with something negative of being bogged down, but I was just
spread thin,
really thin. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, had a lot of great people, under me over there, and my niche was bringing investor wholesaler mindset to licensed activity. Because man, when you combine those two, oh my God, it's like the possibilities are endless. I don't necessarily agree or would say that if you want to be an investor, you have to go get your license. I didn't do that, but if you have your license, there's nothing wrong with it. I wouldn't steer anybody away from getting their license. There's nothing wrong with it. Doesn't make it any harder, contrary to popular belief, right? Disclosure is the easiest thing to do. It doesn't have to be all, it doesn't have to be all awkward and stuff. Oh, by the way, I'm a licensed real estate agent. It doesn't have to be anything crazy like that. It's super easy and smooth. So, I was teaching those things to those guys, and we were getting like higher than normal, commissions, 7%, 8%, right? And this goes back into the greed, aspect, right? So where that comes into play is people they're on teams overlooking the opportunity, right? They're on teams, and not all teams have great opportunities. You got to choose wisely, right? But a lot of people get on teams and they overlook the opportunity of being on a team for the initial paycheck. And I was only getting 30%. I was a listing agent, the top listing agent on the team, getting 30% of the commission. That's enough to make anybody go crazy. And that was kind of the last encounter with greed, that I can, remember. And that came from out of frustration because, you probably have seen this, the smallest deals you work on sometimes are the hardest ones, the most difficult clients who want the most. And I did one of those and ended up making like $500. I was like, man, this is horrible. What is this? All this work. And what I made up in my mind, instead of complaining, right, being a victim, instead of, losing sight of the opportunity of being on that team, because they were giving out leads like crazy, and instead of, overlooking that opportunity, I just did some calculation and decided that every deal that I do, no matter what size deal it is, it equals $768. That's it, right? So $1 million deal and all the way down, treated them the same way. I will walk away just as fast, right? And they gave me power, gave me abundance, right? So someone's giving me a bunch of crap, it doesn't matter. I'll move on to the next, right? So
which motivated sellers like this, like they like that. They like aggressive salespeople. They like someone who's like take away. Because I know it doesn't matter. And they're like,
and aggressive
so cool.
It's the operative word there, right? And then you got to be careful with it, because some people, aggressive looks different, right? There was I don't know the correct term to use, female, girl, woman, right? These days, but there was a female on the team, right, who thought that aggressive and assertive, looked like something totally different. So when she would try to express aggression and assertiveness in a professional way, it came off kind of like, I don't know if I want to, I don't want to deal with her. She's a little, out.
Yeah, that burns a little bit.
Yeah. Sounds like I'm dealing with a prosecutor. I used to tell her, you're acting like a prosecutor right now. Right. So, and I think that comes from just, there's not a lot of examples of a female out there who's killing it and not being, I don't want to curse out here, but not.
I like to say like politely proactive. You have to be politely proactive.
100%. And then also the air of confidence that comes from within, right? You have to really feel that, Like dogs sniff fear, they say, right? These sellers sniff commission breath and desperation, right? So when you come off with that confidence on the inside, right? Not being lackadaisical and not caring, but you're being tactful in everything you do and intentional in everything you say, right? So even your takeaway close is intentional and tactful. It's not tucking your tail between the legs and walking away. So that
I just heard something pretty interesting. I was going back to some old notes while I was just like teaching the team, and they were saying the objections are in direct correlation to the quality of your presentation.
Oh, 100%.
And I was like, this is so, that's like, guys, you have to hear what I'm saying. The objections that you get are in direct correlation to the quality of your presentation.
Yeah.
And like,
that's so fun.
And like when you're talking about, when you have that like confidence, that air about you, you don't get objections.
That's
like
so
when you're talking
fun,
about like the disclosure of like real estate agents, investor, but you can say like, hey, look, this is not a big deal. It's fine. You'll be fine. It'll be super easy. They're like, okay, cool.
Yeah, 100%.
Sounds good.
You can get to a point where you can actually tell them you're wholesaling in so many words. You don't have to use the word wholesale, but you can tell them what you're doing, and they're all good with it. And that's funny you say that, because there used to be this joke or this little inside thing we used to do or say, right? We said coming over to my side, the dark side, right? When I was on that team, was taking the red pill from the Matrix, right? Nobody on the outside knew what it was, but everybody on the team started referring. Everybody who was outside of the red pill agents were referring. It was so strong and powerful, they were referring to themselves as blue pill. I never said they were blue pill, but that caused some issues too, like some segregation issues, or at least they thought it would cause segregation issues, so they wanted to stop that. But we used to go by red pill. It was like good for us, but what it was is that we didn't we got outside the box. Really, it's really just getting outside the box and making it happen regardless of whatever. I don't want to get too much in that because that caused a lot of trouble. Actually,
sure,
part of the reason why I'm off on my own, now. But yeah.
So when you're talking about, so I love your brain for creative financing. I mean, it just doesn't, and the way you think about things, and like I talked to you about something and you're like, yeah, we just kind of, like you were talking about sandwich note or a sandwich wrap, and a subject to a node, or we'll just do this, we'll just do that. I'm like, wow, oh my gosh, that's so many options. Yeah, there's so many options to play with. So I guess what is like for you right now, what is like the greatest, or the three kind of tools that you're using, or three types of tools that I think a realtor could use that are easy to use when dealing with expires or a lead, or someone that is looking to sell their home, or they're looking to buy it or take it over as an investment. What are some three creative things that you're doing right now that and I'd love for you to talk with a little bit about them, because I think your explanation on them is valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. So specific to being an agent, right? Like trying to still get a deal done.
Yeah, let's talk about specific to it. So like I know that I know like on Instagram it's sub to Drew. So I know subject to is one of them. Like maybe like the notes and maybe a wrap. Maybe I think those two I think we've talked about before.
Well, I'm gonna keep it specific to an agent, right? Because some of those like techniques and strategies are cool and stuff, but then it's complex. Not that an agent can't do it, but they can absolutely do it. Anybody can do it. It's just that they don't do it. So the same for investors. Not every investor utilize those strategies, right? So but there's still ways to tap into that and make money. And one of the ways, if we're gonna choose three, would be again, it goes into that red pill like aspect. When I say red pill, it means getting outside the box, right? When you get that license, you get placed in the box, unfortunately, right? A confused mind always says no. So if a broker doesn't understand it, they're going to say no, just stay away from it. It's a lot safer that way. And honestly, even when I was teaching the agents things, I would let them know what was possible if these opportunities came up, but it was always take them down to the market first, because you got to cancel that out anyway before you get to the extravagant stuff, right? To the extra stuff, because
I love that. So if it can't sell, then here we have XYZ. So and they have a problem. here's some other ways you can solve it.
Yeah, if they don't want to sell, right? If they don't want to go to the market, if they're stuck on their price, they don't want to pay a commission, right? All those conversations that we've, heard when we're trying to prospect as an agent, right?
I have them all the time. Like people are like, I don't want to. I talked to a guy yesterday. I don't want to put my house on, go to the market with my house. I want to sell it. I want to sell it without going to the market. I don't want people to see. I don't know why, but they don't want to.
Yeah, they want to do that. They don't want to pay an agent. They're like, all you guys do is put a sign in the yard, pray someone comes in and buys it, right? They say all that stuff, and then most of us as agents tuck our tail between the legs and walk away, go to the next one, or say, he's greedy or unrealistic or whatever. We can make money with unrealistic people, right? But we got to change the way that looks. The way we change that is, one, whatever they're saying, right? Whatever they don't want to do, use that to your benefit. One of the things they don't want to do is maybe sign an exclusive right to sell, right? Or a listing agreement that exclusively gives you the right to put it on the market. And if that property sells with anybody, right, you're getting a commission, guaranteed commission. There's a reason why actually all agents are technically red pill, because we're not doing a normal 9 to 5, right? We're not doing that normal, slave job, right?
Yeah, wage slave.
Yeah. We're out here, we're grinding, as an agent, you should be, grinding. So if so why are we looking for so much security, right? A listing agreement, they can cancel at any time. You can put them in you can put what do you call it? One of the, cancellation fees on it if you want, but what are you gonna pigeonhole them into a contract? Like, come on, that's not good for
you. Can't force them to sell. Yeah.
Right. So it's just like W-2, right? It's this perceived not comfort, but perceived security. There's no security in that, right? So what's wrong with signing one of the other type of agreements, right? Like a non-exclusive, right? What's wrong with that? Especially, even if they don't want to go on the market, work out a price that would work for them, right? Now we're getting wholesaler type of mindset, right? Work out that price. If it's not exclusive, that's fine. You're not putting too much money into it, right? Go get some pictures on your phone, right? And pass it off to the investor community. Hit me up, hit anybody up. Go to one of the meetups, see if someone has someone, right? Put it on Marketplace, Facebook Marketplace, right? But you got an agreement there, but most people won't do it because they want something that they think is guaranteed, right?
I love that. Okay, so that's cool. So it's backing out, eating it backwards and figuring out the price. Don't sign an exclusive listing. Now you have a pocket listing in a lot of ways. Obviously at a price that actually would cause it to sell, because there's a need, they want to sell it. You have a price that actually makes sense for the marketplace, and then you say, hey, look, I have a great property here. Investors, I hear cash buyers here, or here buyers. We want this.
However you want to frame it, right? I would say we're actors, right? We're putting on a performance to help them accomplish something, to be who they need us to be to help us accomplish the goal, right? And get paid so we can support our families and everything, right? And if we don't have families, support ourselves and our livelihood, right? So that's one way. So like, to clean that up, really what I'm saying is it started off with being like, there used to be a thing, right? When I was with Mike Ferry, there used to be a thing. Don't take a short listing, right? Has to be 6 months. Why? Does anybody ask why? Why does it have to be 6 months? Don't you know, like, if you're really being a good listing agent, you should be following up. You should be checking in with them every weekly, giving them an update on the sale. Do you know how hard that gets if it's not moving? Making up stuff like, hey, this week, we had this, or I pitched at our sales meeting, right? There's all that fluff stuff that we're saying that nobody wants to talk about, right? Because, being an agent, being a realtor, you're held to a higher standard and all this, stuff. But let's keep it real, right? I don't want the listing after 90 days, honestly. So if I'm an agent coming in, I'll take 90 days. I'd take in 30 days, right? You just need a shot to take a chance at bat. That's it. That's all you're trying to do. That's the security. Take that shot. If it pans out, it pans out. But that's not the only shot you're taking, right? You're gonna go stack that shot with another shot, or swing, right? Another swing. They're gonna hit. You're gonna make money, right? But you have to get out of that mindset of thinking that this piece of paper gives you security. It's no security. So to clean that up again, further clean it up, what I'm saying is the first strategy, if they're telling you no, they don't want to sign such and such, then get an open agreement signed. Because honestly, that's more of a real pocket listing. Commercial guys aren't going around there like just winging it and saying, okay, I'll bring you a buyer, sir. They get something signed. You can get something signed. And it's not about it being enforceable in court and all this. It's just a meeting of the mind and agreement between two human beings, right? That's it.
Yeah. And then obviously it's you want to make sure you know what if it can sell at that price. Like I said, if it can sell at that price, you might want to talk about compensation. Like if I do sell it, like, will you compensate me?
Oh, absolutely.
That sort of thing.
Work your compensation in there. Be smart.
Or work your there you go. See that? There you go.
Yeah, you got them at this price. This is wholesaling. You got them at this price. Market it at a higher price, right? If it comes in lower, go back and retrade on it. Renegotiate. Do your damn job. That's it. You're a negotiator. Us as agents, we're trained negotiators. Well, untrained, but I
love that too.
Training ourselves. Yeah,
I love that too because then it starts. Okay, here's options, right? So you're giving the option, like you said, start off with, hey, I could take you to market, 6% commission, 6-month listing agreement, and I could do that. Well, I don't want to do that. Okay, let's go to another option. Now I have another option. That before, like you said, with a Mike Ferry plan, I did Mike Ferry too. It's just like 6 months, 6% commission. No. Well, I don't do anything else. You have any other questions?
Yeah.
Right.
On to the next.
On to the next. Right. But there's so much you're leaving on the table. There's so much. There's so much
don't
money.
Get me wrong. It's okay if that's your business model. It's okay. They say the riches are in the niches, right? So if that's your niche and you want to do that, then fine. But make sure you have leads coming in. Make sure you're prospecting for leads. Make sure you're doing all the appropriate things. Don't sit and whine when you're not getting paid because you're turning these opportunities down, or you're not turning these situations into opportunities. You got to create them, right? So either one's okay. Right. Just be good with it. That's all.
Yeah, and there's also a benefit from learning the other side. Like, so, and then how can you use this other side when the opportunity presents itself? That now, instead of saying nope or I don't know what to do, now we understand, hey, look, there are other options that could present themselves.
100%.
So
yeah.
Cool.
Okay,
yeah.
So that's one. All right, so two would be there's a lot actually. So two strategies for agents, right? This one I'll say is a bonus one, honestly. It's really just pre-qualing better, having a discovery conversation and understanding what they want, what's a win, right, for them. If you understand what they need, this is how the team was able to get 7+% listings, right? The highest we got on that team was a 15% listing, right? And as a listing agent, it's been said before, so don't get mad at me. I'm just a messenger saying it again, but the listing agent is the employer out there, right? We're the ones setting the commission, right? So what I've seen a lot is like a 2.5%, right? And if that's what seems to be going on in that neighborhood when you're doing your research and that homes are selling, it's not stopping agents from going, bringing people out to the house to buy it, then obviously they're okay with 2.5%, right? You're the one going out there to get the opportunity. If you get a 7% up to 15% or whatever listing you want, they still can get 2.5%, right? I've got the HUDs to show that, or closing statements nowadays to show almost double. You see an agent, one of them is like an agent, 20-year vet, right? 20-year vet who getting like 8,000 some change, own their own brokerage and everything. One of my agents, 20,000 on the deal, right? Crazy, right? But that comes from good discovery call, understanding what's a win for the seller, right? And the way we would do it, find out what's a win for them, right? If we can get them that price, they'll sign today, whatever the case is. we do our research, we come back. So it makes research and comping so much easier. You don't have to guess what's going to work for them. You don't have to try to make up comps. You don't have to see, purple and call it red because you're looking for red, right? You see everything for what it is, and you're just bringing it back to them to report in. But when you come back with it, a lot of times, you know what they want to walk away with, you're able to give them a little bit more, right? And now you're a hero. But what's also happening is there is more room sometimes, right, to create that 7% plus opportunity. And that's how we get the higher commission, right?
Yeah, and commission is just payment for your value that you bring, right? So it's just like anything. Like some contractors charge a 10% commission, some contractors charge 25% commission on top of everything, right? So it's just that. I mean, it's not a standard. Actually, by law, we can't have a standard commission.
Standard. Yeah.
So
there's no
standard. So if you can get a if you can get, I mean, that's the commission is that's what you're willing to pay. If you bring that kind of, if someone sees that value in you and you kind of can convey that.
It's a conveyance. Yeah. It's all about how you convey it, right? Yeah. If you start with the end in mind, find out what a win for them is, find out what their Disney experience is. As long as you're meeting that or even exceeding it. Because like I said, the formula that we use is we would exceed it a little bit. We're talking about it up front, right? And we're also dramatizing it. Because we're acting, right? Putting some emotion into it, right? What would that do for you? Like there was one guy who actually, not to turn this into a different type of podcast, but he was like, my agent went to him, he said, hey, and we used to game plan before these things, right? If you want to be a professional, get paid like a professional, you do things that professionals do. So a sports player, this is a contact sport. Sports player, they look at tape, they watch video before the match, right? So we would listen to the calls. We were doing everything virtual too, and over the phone. So we listen to the calls the day before, right? And they'll go in and they'll execute what we've talked about, our game plan. So running the whole approach, he would tell them, all right, you said this would be good. I did the numbers, and honestly, I think we can probably if everything hits right for us, we can probably get you this much more on it, like. I think I know the answer to this, but I need you to say, would that be a win for you if we got you that much higher? Would you write a good review about us? Or just be like, whatever, right? This one guy, he said, oh my God, if you did that, my wife would probably sleep with me more, right?
Yeah, right.
Oh, you got him, right? And it's a true story. That was the 8% listing. 8% listing. He got what he wanted. Why can't we get what we want? We're the ones that are providing that opportunity, right? You get what you feel you deserve. Right? We worked it in. And if it didn't work if it didn't work, it's not like we're going to walk away, and we're not hiding it from them. Once we have them like emotionally bought into it, we're signing net sheets and initialing net sheets and all that stuff. So they see all that stuff. Right. And sometimes they ask, it says 8%. What about that? You got to remind them you're getting this, right? This is how I get you this. That's it. That's all it is. But you got to be confident when you're delivering that,
Yeah, and the key, fully transparent, like you said, it's like with wholesaling, like, hey, like I'm fully transparent. This is what I'm gonna do. X, Y, Z. Fully transparent, confident. Same thing here. So it's this confident, like this is what I'm doing. Transparent, X, Y, Z. If you're not okay with that, we could do C. If you're not okay with that, we could do A. Whatever. So cool. Yeah, I love that. And then
that was like a bonus one.
Yeah, I love that. That's really really good. So, if subject to, right? So sub 2, Drew, subject to is such an interesting thing. Like my father is a real estate broker, and I started working for him when I got into real estate, and then he's since retired. But I brought up the idea of subject to. He was like, he was in it. My uncle was a real estate agent in New York for 40 years. Sells like over like 500 properties a year, which is whatever, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But when I brought up the idea to them, they were like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Why? They work with REO properties, banks and stuff. And and I think of them as being people that know a lot about real estate. You can't do that. That's something that you can't do. I was like, really? I was like, well, because this guy's saying that you can do it. So it was baffling for me. It was a really, really cool strategy. So can you tell me a little bit more about maybe some subject to
Yeah.
situations that you've done before
Mhm.
and the thought process behind it?
Yeah. So your dad is right. You can't do it what he was doing. He was, if his experience is around REOs and stuff, you're not doing substitute with REOs. It's real estate owned by the bank. So yeah, and
Right.
that world doesn't work, right? But when you think about, as far as mindset, right? When you explain and show that, have you ever seen when someone dies, has a mortgage on a property, leaves the home to someone else, right? The probate process allows the home to go in their name.
Yep.
That note, as long as it's not a reverse mortgage or anything, that note's still there. As long as those payments are being made, they're good, unless the bank has a problem with it, right? If the bank says something, there's things we can do to work that out, right? But most of the times they don't have a problem with it, right? But that's one way. That's a subject to transaction that people see all the time, but they don't really remember. I told you, when things look different on the appearance, you got this kid from Patterson talking to you over the phone, Patterson, New Jersey, talking to you over the phone. He's sitting there in some sweats, in his office, right? And he's trying to sell you on the idea of subject to being a good option for you. You're like, wait a minute, you can't do that. But when you talk about it like someone passing away or a divorce situation where one spouse gets ordered off of the house, right? And the other one doesn't balk at their name still being on the, the note and everything. It happens all the time. And that's okay. Everyone accepts that, but they won't accept the conversation with you over the phone talking about sub two, right? So once you get them over that and kind of associate it to something that they already know, that's the secret right there. You're just connecting the wire, and then it's like, oh, okay, I get it. And then now you're just working out terms on that.
Perfect. So I love that. So it's a situational based situation, like situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I know I heard, being in the military too. It's like people leaving for the military, having going overseas. They own a house. They're like, hey, look, I just want to get rid of this. So they have to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Or as a realtor, like, we're not in this market, but it potentially will be soon. Is if the house is underwater, or there's no room for the real estate commission, realtor commission, right?
Yeah.
So
it's funny. That's a good point. That's a really good point, right? We used to see that a lot. 2015 timeframe, 2016, right? People writing checks at closing to sell their house, right? So if you take that and match that against, hey, you're gonna take over their mortgage and give them $5,000. That's horrible. That's unethical. Is it? What about me making them write a check for me to sell their house? They got to go into their pockets and write me a check just to sell their house. They didn't have any cap. Which one's unethical? Which one solves their problem better, right? It's just it's all perception,
right.
How do you frame it?
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. So we kind of went over the real estate stuff.
You asked for a scenario though.
But
You asked for a scenario.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
So in January, house in Tampa. We closed on a house in Tampa. This house was on Ballast Point. I can give you the address. You want the address? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
For 3316 West Ballast Point. 3316 West Ballast Point, right? It's a house we purchased. It was on the market. You can see the history, right? It was on the market with the agent. They had two opportunities to sell, right? They were under contract twice with the agent. The seller's frustration was, hey, I'm coming up a hard time. I got to do something, right? With the agent. That was a conversation they had on their own. I had nothing to do with that. And she was like, look, I'm going to go a different direction, right? He still had an opportunity to get, a sell, right? So sign was in your and all that stuff. But her and I had a conversation about us buying it, right? And, the contract, all that relationship with her agent and her, right? Not our shit or not our problem. So what ended up happening is we ended up taking over her mortgage. She was listed at $575. We bought it for $560 and gave her all of her equity out of it. So we chunked it down to figure out what her equity was, right? So she's getting $500 a month. She seller finances her equity at $500 a month. The down payment on her equity was $27,000, right? So get into that deal, $27,000. We paid all closing costs, right? And we have a $500 a month payment to her to pay out her equity, right? It balloons out in 5 years, and we're done with that relationship. The underlying mortgage, 2,600, somewhere around there. Don't quote me on that, right? 2,600.
Uh-huh.
So we took that over. That property is an Airbnb right now. Airbnb. It's operating as an Airbnb right now. It makes $9,000 a month, right? So that's just through conversation and it fitting her situation. If it didn't, if she got an offer, legit offer. I mean, she actually already had two, and they fell through. So she was frustrated. She had a car accident earlier, put her in a bad spot. She had two properties, right? She was already relocated. She moved out of the house. She needed to do something. It was getting like danger close to where like she's going to be going into default soon. So,
Yeah, and I talk to the sellers all the time, or talk to realtors on the team with sellers that like are just unreasonable. Like, well, they're not even none of their that's the wrong way to say it. Or they're either unreasonable, they just can't figure out how to sell the property. They get in their own way, or
right? Yeah,
or even the realtor can't handle that. They can't handle that seller, right? Too, like, it takes sometimes some skills or a certain type of personality to handle that person.
It's fear.
So sometimes.
It comes from a lot of fear, right? And I think unreasonable is a good word, right? Because it covers a lot. And even let's take the creative stuff out of it, right? Let's take investor stuff out of it. Go back a couple of years. Like, I remember this distinctly. I'm in my car. I'm in the Orlando on I Drive. I'm going out there, like, meet with some friends or whatever, but I'm taking this call real quick with an agent, negotiating a deal out in Claremont. And the deal is, right, she has a buyer, and we have the property. Sellers are willing to work with the buyer and all that stuff. I'm even willing to work, right? Because I want to get a deal done. I'm not trying to hold out for like this imaginary buyer to come and give me over asking and all this stuff, especially when it's been sitting for a little bit. Let's get this thing done, right? The best deal you're going to get a lot of times is the first opportunity. You just got to maybe sometimes turn it into a real deal that works for everybody. The problem was they didn't have closing costs. So your buyer has the issue, right? I'm going out of my way to help with that issue. I told her, I talked to the sellers, right? And this is another like tip. There's always like multiple negotiations going on. You have to negotiate you have to set a frame and negotiate with your client, and you have to set a different frame and negotiate with with the other, party, right? The representative from the other party, to make both sides, right? In this case, a buyer agent, right? To make both sides feel like they're winning, right? If you want to call it lying, you call it lying, whatever you want. But I'm just acting. I'm an actor, right? I'm acting out a role, right, to help people get over themselves so we can get a deal done. So this agent, I encountered her a few times over my stint here as an agent. But man, she owned her own brokerage, right? And she would not chip in any of her commission. I'm like, hey, well, I'm sorry. I mean, what do you want me to do? Sellers are coming down. I'm offering up some commission. The last little part's on you. This is for your buyer, right? She was so headstrong, and I was this close to just saying, you know what, screw it. I'll chip in all the rest. Let's get the deal done, right? Because what does that do? That frees me up to go do more deals, right? But the thing she said, she gave me that stupid written script that you get from these gurus who cause you to lose money, right? All these cute little one-liners. No, I'm not going to give up my commission, blah, 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 whatever. Like, why? You're the ones that's going to have to go find another house. I have a product right here that somebody else will come and buy. I tried to reason with her. And this is why I say that's a good word, unreasonable. She was unreasonable. I tried to reason with her. And what happened? The next day, I went back. I had a conversation with the sellers. Like, look, she's not doing this. I'm willing to go and get, just so you guys can get what you want, I'm willing to give a little bit more, right, to get this deal done. They're like, no, you know what, Drew, it's okay. She wants to be like that. It's fine. We know. It was one of those sellers that what's meant for us will be, sometimes it's annoying to hear, but whatever. It worked out, right? Because the next day, sounds like a fake story, but it literally was the next day, we got a full price offer, and she was just out of the game. The full price offer with no issues. like she needed. She's the one with the, so her mindset, her being unreasonable caused her to go do something else to get her rent money for that or mortgage money, where she's paying for that month, right? She could have had money right there. That's what I'm talking about. That's another, so I guess that would be number 2 then, right? As a take, like, be flexible. You got to, the dollars add up. It doesn't have to, especially if we're on the premise that there's no set commission, 6%, whatever percent number, right? Make money on the deal, move on. There's also such thing as an opportunity cost, and people being boneheaded and unreasonable and standing on this false air of confidence are killing themselves. That's why they broke. The money added up.
You know, you said, you get out of your own way is really important. And it's like when you said something like when you went all in on, when you first started, you said, like, I went all in, and you also realized that it's like sometimes it's different than what you think it's going to be. It ends up being different.
Yeah.
And I think that comes up for me is like when you generate, you don't have to tolerate. So it's like,
that's one of those like one-liners too.
I love that, right?
One, yeah.
But it's so true, right? So because it's like when like you're like, whatever, screw it, I'll go find another buyer. I have the house, whatever. I'm gonna go in to find another buyer. It's not a big deal. And the lady, that's the whole thing, is like when you want to, like, it's so unflexible, you end up losing. When other people feel like they're losing, you have to have, everybody has to feel like they're winning in some regard.
Yeah. And remember what kind of sport this is, right? Everybody's quick to throw out I got to do what's in the best interest of my client and this and that. Fiduciary word gets thrown out here and there. But are you really doing what's best interest? The best interest for your client to get the deal, but she was worried about her commission. And that happens all the time, right?
Right.
So,
which is not in the best interest.
Yeah.
It's just,
they
you're worried
hide
about yourself.
behind the best interest, like, come on.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Drew, man, I don't want to take up all of your time, dude. I really appreciate it. We should do this again, maybe like a round 2 as well. Yeah. I've found it very valuable just to kind of have you as a strategic partner.
Absolutely.
Someone I can. You're always there. I'm always like asking your questions, like how does this work? How does this work? How does this work? You're always there you're open, and I know you do a lot of teaching and a lot of like RIAs and different kind of meetups with other realtors and other investors and people looking to learn more about how to about real estate investing, and I think you're a wealth of knowledge. Where can people find you? I know, is Instagram the best place to find you, or how do they find you?
Yeah, Instagram is best place. I'm on Facebook under Drew Oquendo. I'm just not on Facebook that often. And I have a lot of notifications silenced. Even my text messages are silenced because my phone's always going off. And I'm always on the phone, so I see it anyway. Got text messages on there as I look at it right now. But I can give my number. That's fine. You can hit me up. I'm an open book. If someone texts me, just put who they are, because sometimes you get texts and I don't know who the heck they are. We never met or anything, and they just go right into what they're looking for or whatever. But so I'm okay with, text. I'll give my number in a second. And then my Instagram is sub2Drew, like sub and then the number 2. There is a sub TO Drew. He's out in Houston. He's a friend. He's in sub 2 as well. Good guy. He's out there crushing it. We actually just spoke the other day, congratulating each other on some deals. So he's a good dude too, but that's not me. I'm the sub 2 Drew, number 2. So hit me up there. That's always good, and we can connect. I always follow back, right? As long as you have, like, I can see who you are. It's not like one of them spam accounts, but I typically will always follow back. And so my number is 407-373-3279. That's 407-373-3279. Hit me up anytime.
Perfect. Yeah, and if there's like anybody out there has a hard deal they're working on or anything of that sort of thing,
definitely.
Want to look at it a different way, spin it on its head, he's a good person to contact. So, Drew, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for your time. I know it's valuable. I know you.
Likewise.
Yeah, we'll stay in contact and talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, brother.
Later, man. Bye.
See it.